Good evening and welcome to CYC News. Today is the 22nd of June 2014 and the 15th of Bauna, 17:30 am. I'm David Nada.
And I'm Christina Maurice. In today's headlines, Egypt's new government appoints 3 Coptic Christians as ministers. Iraqi terrorist group Daash cuts off drinking water to Christian areas in Nineveh, Iraq. A new report uncovers fear among Lebanese Christians amongst the rise of extremism in Syria. And Syrian Orthodox Patriarch speaks out about persecution of Christians.
The new Egyptian government, headed by Ibrahim Mahlab, took their oath of office before President Abdel Fattah El-Sisi on Tuesday morning. The new government included 3 Christian ministers: Minister of Industry, Trade and Small Industries, Munir Fakhri Abdel Noor, Ministry of Finance, Hani Kadri Yusuf Damian, and Ministry of Urban Development, Dr. Layla Iskander. Egypt's new cabinet included 34 ministerial portfolios, of which 13 are new. The name of some ministers have been changed.
Members of the Iraqi terrorist group Daash cut off water to Christian and minority areas in the Nineveh plain in northern Iraq. A number of Daash forces have targeted Arab villages in the district of Hamdaniya, where more than 70,000 of the region's 165,000 people are Christians. Daash controls Salmiya village, where the water project is located that provides these areas with drinkable water. Christians have expressed concern because Daash controls the major centres in the province of Nineveh. Daash entered the city of Mosul, the centre of the province of Nineveh in northern Iraq and the second largest Iraqi city after the capital Baghdad, on June 6. It tightened its grip on most parts of the city and continued to take control over a number of Sunni Arab villages in the province. Catholic churches and schools across the region have opened their doors to take in Christians and Muslims alike to protect them from the impending threats.
The Pew Research Center published a study this month that revealed fear among Lebanese Christians at the growing influence of Islamic extremism in Syria. The study reported that 65% of Christians in Lebanon are concerned about Al-Qaeda or similar groups gaining control in Syria. On Tuesday, Pew released its results, which were based on polls in Egypt, Jordan, the Palestinian territories, Turkey, Tunisia, Israel, and Lebanon. High percentages in each of the countries polled feared extremist takeover. The lowest number of people concerned were in Turkey, with 21% very concerned about extremist takeover. While the countries polled are not favourable towards Assad, over half of the population in every neighbouring country opposed Western military aid. Even in Israel, an historic ally of the US, 50% did not want the Western countries' interference. National Security Advisor Susan Rice told CNN earlier this month that the US had supported the Syrian rebels by providing them with both lethal and non-lethal aid. Christians of the Middle East have been suffering from repeated acts of violence, especially after the outbreak of the Arab Spring in 2011 and the rise of extremism in the region. Arab Spring countries are experiencing increased attacks on Christians, their property and churches, leading to growing rates of immigration among Christians in these countries.
Churches in the entire Middle East are afflicted, with no differentiation between denominations, said Patriarch Ignatius Ephraim II of the Syrian Orthodox Church. The Patriarch pointed out that Christians in the Middle East have reached a state of misery, but the solution is not to leave, because the Middle East needs Christians as much as Christians need to stay in the land of their forefathers. Patriarch Ephraim returned from Iraq Monday after a visit to check on Iraqis following the eruption of violence. He pointed out that Christians who left Mosul gathered in small communities in many towns and villages in northern Iraq, stressing that the lovers of peace opened the doors of their homes and their churches for them, and the Kurdistan regional government helped receive them. He explained that Christians in Iraq, Syria, and other countries are targeted and persecuted, but stressed that immigration is not the solution. According to the Patriarch, the Church's work is to bear witness, and Christians should reassure their children that the Middle East needs them as they need to stay in the land of their fathers and grandfathers, and to try to secure what they need to stay in this land. Patriarch Ephraim called on governments to help rebuild not only houses, churches, monasteries, schools and mosques, but also human beings, highlighting the need to resort to moderate rhetoric and to accept one another.
Authorities in Sudan have prohibited UNHCR independent expert on human rights in Sudan from visiting Maryam Yahya Ibrahim. Mashoud Badaran attempted to visit the imprisoned woman who has been sentenced to death on charges of apostasy from Islam. According to Sudanese Iraqi newspaper, Sharif Ali, a member of Ibrahim's defense, said that Badaran submitted a request to visit Ibrahim in the prison, but was refused. Sudanese authorities did not include a visit to the prison in the visit schedule of the expert. Kamal Omar, political secretary of the Popular Congress Party and dissident of the National Congress Party, which currently rules Sudan, criticized the death penalty sentence issued against physician Ibrahim. In a press conference held yesterday at the British Council, he said that the judgment offends Islam and Sudan, and that Ibrahim is innocent. In an article, Jahan Henry, a researcher who specializes in the affairs of Sudan at Human Rights Watch, said that the death penalty contradicts Sudanese law and international law. Henry also maintained that it indicates Sudan's discrimination against religious minorities and women. A Sudanese court sentenced Ibrahim to death on May 15 on charges of apostasy of Islam, although she was born of Christian mother and raised as a Christian. The judgment raised reactions from a number of countries and human rights organisations, which asked the Sudanese government to cancel the death penalty. David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, described judgment as barbaric and said freedom of belief is a fundamental principle of human rights.
According to BBC Health, spending time basking in the sun's warming rays may have addictive properties, claim the researchers in the US. Their study, published in the journal Cell, showed that sunlight led to the production of endorphins in the skin. The Harvard Medical School team said their experiments on mice showed repeated UV exposure led to addiction in the animals. Other scientists said describing it as addiction was a step too far. There have been previous suggestions that people can get addicted to the sun. A study of university students using tanning salons suggested around 1 in 3 met the definition for an addiction. Other trials showed withdrawal symptoms could appear, including nausea, jitteriness and shaking, when enthusiastic tanners were given a drug used to treat addiction. And that's all for CYC News for today. Stay tuned for more Christian content on CYC. I'm Christina Maurice.
And I'm David Nada. From the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia, good night and God bless.